Page 31. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sandai listened patiently, not rushing to share his thoughts. He wondered why Kawashima was so insistent about the graduation applications. But these two Uchiha kids only started school this year, and one of them even missed a few months last semester. Kawashima looked up, clearly laying out the details. I see. Sandai tapped his pipe on the desk, exhaling a plume of smoke. He narrowed his eyes, his expression serious. What are their names? Uchiha Shisui and Uchiha Saitama. Those names vaguely rang a bell. He thought he'd seen them on the freshman list. They seemed to be doing well when they enrolled, didn't they? Sandai fell into thought again. If they're following the normal graduation process, there's no reason to stop them, right? Sandai asked Kawashima, who sat up straighter. No, sir. Then I'll be going now, Hokage-sama. The Hokage's office fell silent again, save for the occasional puffing of his pipe. All right, I approve their applications. Kawashima looked at the two young boys standing before him, his face stern. Though only 6 years old, they lacked the immaturity of other children their age. What he sensed from them was a calm beyond their years. The graduation assessment is scheduled for 2 o'clock this afternoon. You'll pass if you can last 10 minutes in combat. Kawashima announced the requirements and time for the graduation exam after thanking the headmaster. Saitama and Shisui left. Lunch was coming up soon, leaving little time before the afternoon assessment. No sweat, Shisui. It's not a big deal. Shisui grinned at Saitama. Afternoon arrived. Who's up first? The proctor, a ninja academy teacher in his 20s, likely a Chunin-level ninja, was in charge of the graduation assessment. Behind the proctor stood 2 ordinary-looking ninjas in ninja vests, not figures Saitama recognized. Shisui stepped forward and said to the proctor, I'll go first, sir. He placed his hand on his dagger, eyeing the 2 Chunin. Choose one to fight. The test ends after 10 minutes. The proctor squinted at the ninjas behind him. I'll take the ninja with the tachi. Shisui stated confidently. The named ninja smiled. He wouldn't underestimate these early graduation applicants. Anyone who dared to apply must be pretty strong, and he'd spotted the Uchiha crest on their clothes. Like the Hitaki kid a few years back, they might be young, but they were probably skilled. Looking intently at the boy, Chunin number 1 licked his lips. The thrill of beating these geniuses was exhilarating. All right, let's begin. Seeing that they were ready, the proctor signaled the start. The training ground was spacious, allowing them to fight without holding back. Saitama and the others stepped aside to watch the fight unfold. Chunin number 1 began subtly observing Saitama, gathering intel for his upcoming battle. Page 32. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Shisui and the Chunin both fought with ninja swords, making it a close-quarters battle. Whoa! They clashed head-on. Being younger and smaller, Shisui was initially overpowered. He gritted his teeth and aimed a kick at his opponent. Caught off guard, the Chunin took the kick on his thigh. After the initial exchange, both backed off. Shisui stared at the Chunin, feeling a pressure he hadn't experienced before, and this was just a Chunin. His eyes narrowed. Shisui's expression hardened with determination. The Chunin advanced, his sword angled to the side. As if gathering momentum, Shisui met him head-on with a kick of his own, refusing to be outdone. Okay, so I might be outmatched in strength, but, Clang. Clang, my speed and agility are way better, Shisui used his physical advantages to constantly engage the Chunin, front, back, left, right. He deftly dodged the Chunin's heavier strikes, landing surprise attacks of his own. For a moment, Shisui seemed to have the upper hand. Maybe the Chunin felt humiliated by being toyed with because he sped up, nullifying Shisui's attacks. Clang! Shisui swung at the Chunin's back, but his blade was parried. Instantly, a force slammed into Shisui's gut. The Chunin had kicked him. Ugh! Shisui slid backward, leaving a long scrape on the training ground. The Chunin smirked, holding his sword in his right hand. He beckoned Shisui forward with a few fingers of his left, as if to say, come on, tough guy. Planting his feet, Shisui frowned, opting not to use his body flicker technique just yet. Grip tight on his blade, Shisui charged, no more holding back. The Chunin smirked, seeing Shisui rush toward him. He thought, time to teach this kid a lesson. Time to show him what being a Chunin means. As Shisui closed the distance, the Chunin began to relax. Figures. Still a ninja academy kid. Fast, sure, but clueless. He's just coming straight at me. Suddenly, the Chunin's eyes narrowed. What's that hand seal? Shisui formed a sign with his left hand, and it sent a chill down his spine. Whoosh! Shisui vanished. How is that possible? The Chunin couldn't believe it. Body flicker technique. A kid from the academy knows a jutsu I haven't even mastered. Oof! A kick slammed into the Chunin's back, sending him flying. Reacting quickly, the Chunin spun around mid-air and braced his sword across his chest. Ugh! This time, it was the Chunin who skidded across the ground. Page 33. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Chunin skidded back, dragging his knife across the ground, leaving a long groove. Tui! He spat, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Guess I underestimated this Uchiha kid, mastering the teleportation jutsu. No wonder he thought he was ready to graduate. He pulled his sword free and straightened up. Kids got the skills to graduate already, just from those few moves. Still got a good bit of time left, so we can play around some more. Shisui narrowed his eyes, watching the Chunin. That instant body technique caught him off guard, but it won't work again. Guess I'll have to rely on real skill now. He gripped his knife tighter. I need to get stronger. Shisui thought. Not bad, the Chunin said, pointing his blade at Shisui, a smirk tugging at his lips. Clang! The fight resumed, a flurry of back-and-forth attacks. 10 minutes flew by. Alright, that's enough. The proctor stepped forward, addressing a panting Shisui. That battle was a real eye-opener. A student holding his own against a Chunin for that long, even subtly gaining the upper hand at times. Even if the Chunin was holding back, still, Shisui sheathed his knife, slung it over his back, and bowed to the Chunin. They exchanged a reconciliation seal. Congrats on graduating. The Chunin clapped him on the shoulder. No need to be modest. He grinned at Shisui. That Uchiha kid's got talent. Strength like that at his age. He's one to watch out for. Next up, Uchiha Saitama, the proctor announced. Shisui smiled at Saitama, who was standing nearby. Saitama just shook his head at Shisui, a look of helplessness on his face, before stepping forward and nodding to another Chunin. From what Saitama could tell, this Chunin seemed to specialize in ninjutsu. The Chunin nodded back, then waved his hand to signal the fight could begin. Begin! The proctor called out, and the two fighters tensed. The Chunin noticed the dagger on Saitama's back and naturally drew a kunai from his pouch. Saitama pushed off hard, taking the offensive. He preferred being in control. Shink! His first strike missed, the Chunin dodging easily. The blade grazed the Chunin's face, doing nothing. With a simple sidestep, the Chunin had already figured out Saitama's attack pattern. Clang! With Saitama off balance, the Chunin launched his first attack, a straight thrust aimed at Saitama's face. Saitama parried the blow with his dagger. The kunai's sharp point sparked against the side of the blade with a screech. Both fighters kicked out, creating distance between them. Fire style, fireball jutsu. Fire style, fireball jutsu. Page 34. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Same jutsu showdown. The few spectators never expected Saitama and the Chunin to be so evenly matched. They both retreated, planting their ninja tools in the ground, and the instant they regained their footing, they unleashed their jutsu. Whoosh! The fireballs collided, flames erupted, and the air shimmered with heat. Saitama leaped back, dodging the sputtering flames, gripping his dagger, and watching the Chunin, who had also jumped back to evade the blast. The Chunin frowned. In that last ninjutsu exchange, his fire jutsu hadn't gained the upper hand. He clearly saw his own fire jutsu falter first. Is this guy really just a ninja academy student? Without hesitation, they clashed again. Kunai and dagger met with a shower of sparks. Saitama grew more excited with each blow. This kind of fight got his blood pumping. He licked his lips, his eyes sharpening, radiating a palpable intensity. Okay, maybe that's an exaggeration. The point is, Saitama was getting serious. He looked at the Chunin and saw the same seriousness reflected back. Their movements kicked up dust as they collided once more. Saitama jumped, his right hand slashing out with the dagger. The blade flashed white under the sunlight, focusing all his energy. Saitama put his full strength into the blow. Clang! That the Chunin barely managed to deflect the attack with his kunai near his shoulder. Still, the force of Saitama's blow drove him down, his left leg buckling beneath him. Annoyed, the Chunin pushed upwards, and Saitama used the momentum to backflip away. Staring at his opponent, Saitama braced himself for a sudden attack. His strength and speed weren't giving him much of an advantage against the Chunin, and his lack of experience showed. He lacked the finesse of the Chunin. Raising his dagger again, Saitama knew he couldn't beat a Chunin with ninjutsu alone. This time, the Chunin attacked first, his kunai a deadly viper striking from the shadows. Saitama, unable to use his Sharingan, was forced on the defensive, barely able to parry the relentless assault. Cling! Saitama blocked a kunai aimed at his shoulder, and the Chunin locked eyes with him. Saitama, without missing a beat, aimed a powerful kick at the Chunin's groin, the air whistling as it flew. His height was a disadvantage, and he wasn't afraid to exploit it. Seeing the sneaky kick, the Chunin's face tightened, and he instinctively bit his lip. He shifted his right leg to the left, slamming his knee down, just managing to block Saitama's foot and trap his right leg. In a flash, Saitama's underhanded attack was thwarted. Gripping the opponent's kunai tightly, Saitama slashed towards the Chunin. The purpose wasn't to injure, but to force the Chunin to retreat and release his hold on Saitama's leg. The ploy worked. The Chunin took a step back, and Saitama used the opportunity to disengage. This Chunin was a tough customer. He still wasn't strong enough. The muscles in Saitama's hands ached slightly from the constant blocking. This was getting difficult. Could he even win? Clang! Saitama blocked another attack, stepping back again. His short sword flashed back and forth, parrying blows. Saitama's offensive rhythm was completely disrupted, leaving him only able to defend. Ha! The Chunin stopped, his grip tightening on his kunai. The few spectators were puzzled, wondering why the Chunin, who had been so aggressive just moments ago, had suddenly stopped. What's going on? The Chunin looked confused. He was feeling something strange in his body. A faint numbness was spreading through him, especially in his hands. Page 35. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chunin, still on the defensive, eyed Saitama suspiciously. He figured there was only one explanation. It had to be some kind of trick. Was it poison or ninjutsu? Frowning, Chunin dismissed the poison idea. First, this was a graduation exam, and poison wasn't allowed. Second, he hadn't been injured at all, so it was unlikely to be a poison that could paralyze his whole body. His eyes locked on Saitama's sword. Chunin thought he'd figured it out. Figured it out, have you? A slight smirk touched Saitama's lips. He dropped his defensive stance, raised his blade at an angle, and pointed it at Chunin. As Saitama held the sword, the sunlight glinted off the blade, revealing faint electrical arcs crackling around it. They shone brightly. Is that a lightning-style chakra transformation? Chunin's eyes narrowed, and the hand holding his kunai twitched. What a freak. Saitama wasn't about to give his opponent time to recover. He pushed off hard, closing the distance on Chunin. His blade came down in a swift, overhead strike, whoosh, star, slicing through a branch. Saitama kept moving. Chunin had just used the body flicker technique to escape. This time, Chunin didn't get another chance to use ninjutsu. Saitama attacked relentlessly, forcing him back with every strike. He kicked Chunin, and the moment he blocked, Saitama struck again. Chunin continued to retreat. This time, Saitama didn't pursue his advantage. Fire style, fireball jutsu. Another ninjutsu attack came his way. Chunin barely dodged, his body battered, and his clothes scorched by the fireball. Saitama's chakra was still plentiful. The lightning-style chakra coating on his blade remained steady, and he wasn't afraid of ninjutsu. Saitama knew the paralyzing effect of the lightning chakra was still affecting his opponent, so he pressed his attack. Okay, I give up. Seeing Saitama ready to finish him off, Chunin raised his hand in surrender to the proctor standing nearby. This kid was seriously messed up. He'd mastered lightning-style chakra transformation at such a young age and was able to channel it into his blade. Every time they clashed, the lightning chakra subtly paralyzed his opponent. It was like boiling a frog in warm water, with effects so small that the enemy might not even realize it's happening, simply writing it off as the aftershock of the blow. But when it finally added up, it was game over. Chunin glanced at Saitama, realizing he'd underestimated him. Saitama sheathed his sword. Uchiha Saitama, pass. The proctor announced the result with a surprised look. No one expected this. The Chunin had actually surrendered. Graduating was already harder for students like Saitama and Shisui, who had only studied for half a year, than for other students. For Shisui to last 10 minutes against a Chunin was impressive enough, but no one thought that the relatively unknown Uchiha Saitama would force a Chunin to surrender. Saitama calmly made the reconciliation seal with Chunin number 1, then nodded slightly to him. He knew that if the guy had gone all out from the start, he wouldn't have stood a chance, even with his hidden trump cards. Looks like the Uchiha clan has produced another genius. The Chunin grinned, stretching his limbs as he spoke. He still felt a bit numb, and the lingering effects hadn't completely worn off, and just like that, Saitama and Shisui had completed their graduation exams. After thanking the proctors and discussing when they could pick up their ninja headbands, Saitama and Shisui left the training ground. Page 36. You are listening at novelfull.audio. They can head out. The proctors need to report back. They all passed. Shimagawa was stunned. It had only been a 10-minute fight against a Chunin. Yes. The proctor nodded, giving Shimagawa a full, unfiltered account of everything. Right, I need to brief Lord Hokage. Dismissed. Shimagawa felt he had to report this to the Hokage, even if he was swamped. Saitama, what exactly did you do back there? Shisui asked. You mean paralyzing that Chunin? What else would I mean? Shisui asked Saitama, a hint of recognition in his tone. It's something I've been working on, a lightning chakra nature transformation. I haven't quite mastered it yet, still pretty rough around the edges. Saitama held out his right hand for Shisui to see. It was scorched black. What's this? Shisui frowned. For something like that, Saitama, you should get advice from someone in the clan. Yeah, I'll do that later. Saitama picked up on the worry in Shisui's voice. He hadn't planned on using the lightning nature transformation in actual combat so soon, but today's fight was tight. He had to show either the Sharingan or the nature transformation, and Saitama chose the nature transformation. After all, it could just show he had a knack for lightning chakra. Luckily, the injuries weren't too bad. Saitama rubbed his hand, just some surface burns that would heal in a few days. Walking alongside Shisui, Saitama glanced at the setting sun. After graduating, he'd officially be a reserve member of the Uchiha military police force. Hopefully, his performance at graduation wouldn't attract too much attention. It's Konoha year 45, and the Third Shinobi World War is right around the corner. Things are getting urgent. And Konoha's situation isn't great, as the land of fire, situated between major countries with rich resources. Konoha is the envy of many. The Third War kicked off with the death of the third Kazekage. The hidden Sand Village is convinced the Leaf Village was behind it, and they've amassed ninja on the border, ready to take a chunk out of Konoha. The Sand Village is in the desert, after all, and barren. The other ninja villages are sizing each other up too, old grudges simmering. Everyone is preparing. It might only take a spark to ignite an all-out war. Back home, Saitama began to analyze the current situation in the ninja world, drawing on his memories. After dinner, he sat in the yard. Granny Xiang had gone inside to rest, though whether she was asleep or not was anyone's guess. Creek, the door opened, and Uchiha Mori, who he'd just met, walked in. He was in Uchiha home clothes, unarmed. I heard you passed the graduation exam today, Uchiha Mori said, smiling as he sat next to Saitama. Report in after a few days off, and be prepared. Shisui knows where to go. You two should go together when the time comes. Uchiha looked at Saitama with a serious look, a clear hint in his eyes. Okay, Saitama replied. He'd been looking forward to this day. Lin's already talked to Shisui, Uchiha Mori added. He didn't linger, leaving Saitama's house soon after. He'd only come to tell Saitama about reporting. Since he didn't know him well, he had nothing else to say. Page 37. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Saitama sat there, lost in thought. Chapter 13 Young Eagle. It's been 3 days since graduation, and Saitama's been chilling at home, getting his head right. He finally managed to get his ninja headgear back too. Grandma, I'm heading out. Today's the day he's supposed to meet Shisui to report for duty. He got dressed, slapped on his forehead protector, said goodbye to Uchiha Seong, and hit the road. The spring air was crisp, the sun felt good on his skin, and Saitama felt like he was finally taking control of his future. Shisui, standing at the corner, Saitama waved down Shisui, who was scanning the area. Saitama, Shisui replied, walking over to join him. They were at the edge of the Uchiha district, heading together to the guard training grounds on the east side. The two young ninjas walked shoulder to shoulder, bathed in the morning light. The Uchiha compound was pretty expansive. It took them a good half hour to reach their destination, partly because they were taking their sweet time. In the distance, Saitama spotted the obvious building. A small, two-story structure with open space on 3 sides and a forest in the back. It looked old, but sturdy. This was the Uchiha Guard's headquarters, a place that truly belonged to the clan. The police station was nearby, another 2-story building. Before Saitama and Shisui even got close, 2 figures appeared out of nowhere and stood before them. Saitama recognized them, Uchiha Mori and Uchiha Hayashi. You're early, Uchiha Mori said. Uchiha Hayashi just stood quietly, watching. Yeah, I've been loafing around long enough at home. Saitama's serious tone sounded a little comical coming from him. Uchiha Mori didn't react, just nodded. Follow me. We'll go see the captain first. Okay. Saitama and Shisui exchanged glances, then fell in behind them. Uchiha Mori and Uchiha Hayashi looked to be in their early 20s, but Saitama could feel their powerful chakra levels, definitely at least Jonin level. That was pretty strong for an Uchiha, especially considering they were still young and had room to grow. They were probably key members of the current guard. Captain, Saitama and Shisui are here. Uchiha Mori led them to an office on the 2nd floor. A figure was hunched over documents at a desk. Uchiha Mori knocked and went in, gesturing back at Saitama and Shisui. Uchiha Fugaku. Saitama realized who the captain was. Shisui knew too. The captain was the head of the Uchiha clan. Shisui, good to see you. Uchiha Fugaku put down his papers and looked at Shisui first. Shisui had been in the guards before, and Fugaku had been impressed with his work ethic, talent, and independent thinking. You're Saitama, right? Uchiha Fugaku turned his attention to Saitama. Yes, sir. Saitama gave a slight bow. Just call me Captain here. You're part of the guard now, after all. Uchiha Fugaku smiled faintly. He vaguely remembered meeting this kid in the street during the new year. Welcome aboard. I hope you can achieve your goals here. Uchiha Fugaku got straight to the point. He could tell that Saitama and Shisui were both mature and focused, so there was no need for formalities. We're honored to serve the clan, Saitama replied, surprisingly emotional. Good. Mori. Uchiha Fugaku waved his hand to Uchiha Mori, who was standing by. Show them around. You and Hayashi can handle their training for the next few days. With that, Uchiha Fugaku picked up his documents and went back to reading, dismissing Saitama and the others. Saitama and his group took the hint and left. Page 38. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Currently, the entire guard team, including the captain, consists of only 17 members. And yeah, that includes you too. Mori paused, waiting for Saitama and Shisui to bite. 17. That's it? Saitama was puzzled. The Uchiha clan was supposed to be Konoha's top family, why so few guards? The guard team is handpicked, the best of the best. We're going for quality, not quantity. Uchiha-san paused, then added, besides, a huge force would raise eyebrows. Saitama nodded, getting it. Shisui, who wasn't quite up to speed on all the political maneuvering, kept his questions to himself. Most of the others, except for me and Lin, are around your age, maybe a bit older. Come on, Saitama, let's get you acquainted. Shisui already knows the crew. Saitama and Shisui followed Uchiha-sen to a training ground behind the building. A handful of kids, all around 10 years old, were scattered around the area. Alright, everyone, hold up. We've got a new recruit. Uchiha Mori clapped his hands, halting the training session. The kids, probably just getting started for the day, stopped and gathered around. Hey everyone, I'm Uchiha Saitama. Nice to meet you. Saitama jumped in before Uchiha-sen could introduce him. The group of 10-year-olds eyed Saitama with curiosity. He looked younger than most of them. Shisui was the last one to join at that age, and everyone knew what Shisui could do. From now on, Saitama and Shisui are officially part of the team. Let's all try to get along. Looking at the group, Saitama felt a weird sense of responsibility. Was the Uchiha clan's future riding on these kids? With no further instructions, the others resumed their training. Introductions. They'd get to that later. Saitama, Shisui. Sen pulled them aside, his relaxed demeanor replaced by seriousness. I know you two are mature for your age, but this is still early. Work hard, get stronger, for the sake of the clan. Uchiha-sen spoke with clear intent. Saitama and Shisui mirrored his serious expression. I won't let the clan down, Saitama vowed. He was committed now. Good. Hold on to that promise. After this, Saitama learned more about the guard team. He would be listed in the Konoha police force, but he wouldn't actually do any police work. Just like he suspected, it was a cover. By joining the guard, he would receive preferential treatment regarding clan resources to help him improve as quickly as possible. Ninjutsu training, ninja tools, everything would be provided by the Uchiha clan. Being Konoha's top family, they had the resources to spare. Since it was his first day, Saitama didn't stay for training that morning. Shisui, who was familiar with the place, stayed behind to train and get to know the others. Saitama needed to head back and tell Grandma Xiang about his new situation and gather some of his things. Now that he had the clan's support, and his training wasn't just about natural talent, Saitama was pumped. He felt like he could really take his strength to the next level. He went back to the guard station in the afternoon. The group of kids were still going at it, sweat pouring off them. Instead of interrupting, Saitama found an empty spot and started practicing his swordsmanship. You're Saitama, right? A voice broke his concentration. He stopped his practice and turned around. A boy was looking at him, full of curiosity. Yeah, and you are. Saitama calmly faced the boy. I'm Uchiha Nagisa. The boy named Uchiha Nagisa came closer and extended his hand. Page 40. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking around, I counted 11 people, but there could be more hiding in the shadows. We need to get closer and watch them, I said. He nodded, agreeing with me. Alright, let's move in. Before I could react, he was already moving, focusing chakra to his feet. Saitama used the trees as cover, stepping onto the trunks to approach the camp. We'd been up on high ground, but the bandit camp was nestled in a wooded area. I followed, stepping lightly to avoid making any noise. We moved silently through the trees until we were about a half-mile from the camp. The intel said there were ninjas in this group, but I wasn't sure if they had anyone scouting. This was as close as we could safely get any closer, and we risked being spotted. Next, we need to scout around and see if anyone's lurking, I said, giving him a serious look. This was a matter of life or death. After all, after agreeing on which directions we'd each take, we split up and began our reconnaissance. Chapter 14. After splitting up, I started my search, sticking to my assigned area, the only sound was the rustling of leaves, and the bandits in the camp hadn't noticed us. It took us more than half an hour to get a feel for the area. Either these guys were overconfident or just plain careless, because I didn't find a single lookout. "What did you find, Shui?" I asked when he returned. He shook his head, looking puzzled. "It's weird, I didn't spot any sentries. Maybe they're just too good for me to notice." "Same here," I said, rubbing my chin. "What's the plan?" He seemed unsure of what to do next. "The intel said there were ninjas in this group, but they shouldn't be too strong." I stared at him, letting the implications sink in. We knew about 11 people, but there could be others hiding. We had a choice: launch an attack or continue to observe. "How about we take out a few of them first?" I suggested. "What do you say?" "Okay, let's do it." He must have been confident in his abilities, because he didn't hesitate. The sky was dark and gloomy. You could tell rain was coming. A guy walked around the edge of the camp, seemingly looking for something. He went over to a big tree. The closest tent was 50 meters away. It was a dead zone. The man stood under the tree and started to unzip his pants. Unbeknownst to him, a pair of eyes was watching everything. "Zizi," that the sound of urine hitting the ground. A leaf fell, and the man turned around, alert. Seeing it was just a leaf, he went back to what he was doing. After he was done, the man shook his hand, a relaxed smile on his face. Schwa. Another sound, but the man didn't turn around this time. Bah, that the sound of a weapon piercing flesh. His mistake cost him everything. I pulled the kunai from the man's back and wiped the blood off on his clothes. By injecting lightning chakra into the kunai, I paralyzed his body as I stabbed him. He didn't make a sound, not even a whimper for help. Looking back at the distant tent, I dragged the body behind the tree.